I've had some requests for a series of videos about using WARBL, and I'm going to start off with a brief unboxing video so you see what you get when you order one. And then I'll follow this with some videos specific to various apps, devices, and setups, including, for example, using the WARBL mouthpiece versus the bagpipe bag. When you receive a WARBL, depending on what country you're in and what accessories you've ordered, it'll come in a box like this or one a little bit smaller. If you're in the US, it'll be inside a padded envelope. When we open it, if you've ordered the bagpipe bag, that is this. If you're in the US, the bag will be in the envelope, not inside the box itself. I'm going to set this aside for now, and I'll talk about this more in a few minutes. In the box is a micro USB cable, the WARBL mouthpiece, and I'll talk about these a little bit more in a few minutes, WARBL sticker, a little bag with a tiny tube of grease, and most people won't ever need to use this, but if you have the bagpipe bag and it gets difficult over time to put the plastic tube into the stopper, you can use a little bit of this grease to make it easier. And the WARBL itself, and a couple pieces of paper. This one has a QR code. You can point your phone camera at this and it will open the quick start guide, which has a little more information about getting the WARBL set up. And then currently there's a coupon for a discount on Respiro, which is a software synthesizer app. Now going to the WARBL itself, we take it out of the box. There's some desiccant you can throw away. Now this little plastic bag, if you ordered the bell sensor for playing uilleann pipes, that bell sensor is in there. There's also a little black plastic tube, and this is sort of a holdover. This was the original mouthpiece. It's been replaced by the other mouthpiece, which I'll show you in a second. But the original mouthpiece, I still give people that little tube. You can just stick it in the end of the rubber stopper that comes in the WARBL. And some people might prefer this either because of its shape or simplicity, or the fact that no air escapes, so you can just blow into the tube, just put pressure on it with your mouth and no air will escape, so it uses no breath. So some people may prefer that, but most people will be using the newer mouthpiece. And I'll show you that now. This is shaped like a traditional tin whistle mouthpiece. The air passage goes in this end and then out this little tube at the bottom, and the reason for that is it ejects moisture. And occasionally you can have moisture issues just like you will with a real tin whistle mouthpiece, but if you follow similar precautions, for example not eating or drinking right before you play, moisture shouldn't be too much of an issue. But the idea is that air and moisture come out, and then this end puts air pressure on the pressure sensor inside the WARBL without subjecting that to any moisture. So to put this mouthpiece on the WARBL, you'll remove the little rubber stopper that the WARBL came with. If you're going to use a bagpipe bag or this little tube, you'll need that. But take it out if you're using the mouthpiece. It just slides on the end. You can kind of twist it and press it on and line it up. And then you're ready to play. Now the bell sensor, if you did order that, again, this is only needed for playing uilleann pipes, and what it does is it lets you play uilleann pipes on the knee, which means you rest the chanter on your knee and it cuts the sound off if you have all the sound hole covers. This just plugs into the end, a little jack in the end of the WARBL. Now, until recently, if you ordered the bell sensor, it also came with a right angle USB cable, which plugged in and then went off to the side of the WARBL. Because of supply chain issues related to COVID, I can no longer get that. It was a very specific cable. So now, what I recommend doing, and this works just as well, is to use the cable that came with the WARBL and just bend the cable to the side, and that works totally fine. And this cable is extremely durable and it can be bent thousands of times without hurting it. So you can just do that and set it on your knee and it works just the same. Now just briefly to set up the bagpipe bag, if you're using that. Again, you wouldn't have the mouthpiece in the WARBL. But you would want that little rubber stopper that came in it originally without the short plastic tube, just the stopper. You'll take the bag, and because this is, again, just a cheap plastic water bottle, it has a lid that it came with. You just unscrew that, you don't need it. You'll take the stopper and the tube that came in the bag, plug the stopper into the bag, and then you blow in the end of the tube to inflate the bag. And you can put your thumb over it for a second if you need to. And then just plug that tube into the little stopper. The bag kind of stays inflated even if your thumb isn't over the tube, just because it's sort of an oval shape. And now that's ready to play. It's inflated. And the idea with the bag is that no air ever escapes. So when you squeeze under your arm, you're just putting air pressure on it. There's no air escaping the system. So you never need to blow it up again once it's blown up and connected to the WARBL. It's completely airtight. If you're using a real bagpipe bag, which I may talk about in a later video, you can set it up so that air is constantly escaping. You're refilling it with a blow tube or bellows like with uilleann pipes. And then you can change the software settings in the WARBL a little bit to tweak the pressure response. But again, I'll talk about that a lot more in later videos. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this video is plugging WARBL into other devices. So remember that WARBL is just a MIDI device. It doesn't make any sound on its own, so it always has to be plugged into another device like a PC or Mac or a mobile device running a MIDI app or into a dedicated USB MIDI hardware synthesizer. Now, the cable that comes with WARBL has on this end the traditional USB-A connector that'll plug directly into most PCs and Macs, for example, and those will recognize the WARBL immediately as a plug-and-play USB MIDI device. For newer devices like laptops, Android devices, and some iPads, there will be instead a USB-C input, which is a smaller USB plug. So for those, you'll have to get an adapter that this plugs into, so it has a USB-A mid input and then a USB-C output that'll plug into your device. Or you could get a whole new cable that has micro USB on one end to plug into the WARBL and then USB-C on the other end to plug into your device. Now, most iOS devices like iPhones and iPads will have a Lightning connector input. For that, you'll need some sort of connector, again, that has a USB-A input on one end and then a Lightning plug on the other end. Now, this is an Apple brand connector. This is extremely reliable and should work fine with all iOS devices. The one problem with this is that unfortunately Apple and now most Android makers have been not including a 3.5mm headphone jack on devices anymore. So if you want to use headphones with your device while using WARBL, or you want to be able to plug into external speakers, you'll need some sort of adapter that adds a 3.5mm headphone jack. Now, unfortunately, you can't use you can't use Bluetooth headphones or speakers when you're using a MIDI device because there's too much delay, there's too much latency, so you won't be able to play comfortably. So you need some sort of adapter so you can connect hardwired headphones or speakers to the device. This is an example of one that for the most part seems to work fine. This is made in China, and you'll find ones that look just like this under a lot of brand names. They're probably all the same, but what I look for is in the product description or reviews, mention that it will work with a MIDI device. If it says that, the chances are it should work. Having said that, there are some variations in the chips they use, so it might possibly work with some iOS versions and not others, or some devices but not others. But this one I've tested with quite a few Apple devices, and it seems to work fine on all of them. So you plug the WARBL in and headphones in, and you can also charge your Apple device, and then this has the Lightning connector on the other end. So this is the best solution I've found so far. Unfortunately, Apple doesn't make an adapter that is like this, so you have to try one of these inexpensive ones, and they may be a little bit hit or miss depending on which one you get. Unfortunately, they're pretty expensive. This one was about $15 US. So if you can find one that says it'll work with MIDI devices, so far it seems like the chances are pretty good that it'll work with WARBL. So that's it for the unboxing video. Thanks for watching.